Hello, welcome to Alyssa Jean's Reviews, and ho, ho, ho! Happy holidays! I am, of course, your hostess, Alyssa Claus, at least for the next few days. That'll be my name. Happy holidays to you all, but I am not here to celebrate holidays. I am here to hand out my awards for 2023, three awards specifically. Two of them are actually negative, so I don't know if awards is really the best word for this, but it's the word that I'm rolling with. So I will be giving out my awards for the most overrated show of 2023, the most underrated show, and the worst show. Of course, only picking from the shows that I personally watched, and this is my personal opinion. If you want to watch this video one piece at a time, you may do so by looking in the description below and clicking on the timestamp for the appropriate portion of this video that you would like to watch. I know in the past that I have done these as three separate videos, and this time I'm doing it all in one video, but you can use those timestamps. All right, enough of the preamble. Let us go ahead and dive into it, starting with my pick for the most overrated show in 2023. Okay, let's start with the most overrated show of 2023, by my opinion. And this was a tough one. It was not as easy as it had been the past 2 years that I did this. So, just for a review, in 2021, I gave the award to Invincible Season 1, a highly overrated show. I thought it was mediocre in a best case scenario, but for some reason, everyone else was drinking its Kool Aid. I did not even bother watching Season 2, which was released this year. And then last year in 2022, I gave the most overrated award to The Boys Season 3. Everyone still acts like this is a quality show. I don't get it. The writing is terrible. The characters are spinning its wheels. There is no character development whatsoever, and it's getting really old. And I did not bother watching the Boys spinoff that was released this year, Gen V or Gen 5. I don't know how you pronounce that, but I didn't watch it because I am so over The Boys. This year, I don't think any show was as overrated as either of those two. And in fact, I would say I don't think any show in 2023 was anywhere near as overrated as my runner up for 2022, which was Star Wars Andor, an incredibly overrated show, which probably would have been given that award in any other year. But because of the discrepancy between how I think of The Boys as not being very good and everyone else acting like it's the best thing they've ever seen, that was greater than the discrepancy between of how I felt about Andor, which I still pretty much liked, but I just didn't think it was like the greatest Star Wars show ever, not even close. Yeah, um, so I went with The Boys over Andor. However, Andor is definitely more overrated than anything in 2023. At the beginning of 2023, I was thinking Last of Us could end up getting that award because at the beginning of that season, I was not that impressed, and everyone was acting like it's the greatest thing they ever saw in their lives. But by the end of the season, I ended up really liking The Last of Us a lot. I still probably don't like it quite as much as other people, but I like it enough where I can't say it's overrated because I mean, I gave it an 8.5 out of 10. Pretty strong show. It had some really strong episodes. So that's out. Um, then it came down to two other shows, both of which I gave 7 out of 10s to. So still pretty solid ratings. The second one, the one that I didn't pick, I'm actually going to reference later in this video, and you'll understand once I get to it. You'll see. The one that I did choose, I'll go ahead and tell you now. The most overrated show for 2023 is Yellow Jackets season 2. So first of all, I should say that there will be spoilers for Yellow Jackets. I cannot talk about this without spoilers. So if you have not seen Yellow Jackets and you would not like to be spoiled, then you are going to have to pause this video, go down to the description below, and click on to the next section because I will get into spoilers for Yellow Jackets. That's the only way I can possibly talk about it. So, um, as I said, I still overall like this season. I also had watched season one right before it. I didn't watch season one when it originally came out, so I watched them back to back this year. Um, and I think overall the show is a little bit overrated. Um, and I think the reason why I ultimately landed on it is not necessarily because there's a lot of critical acclaim or that is super popular or anything like The Boys is, or even Invincible. But I think mainly because of the buzz within my personal group of friends. That's how I started watching it. Is I had multiple friends saying, "Oh, you've got to watch Yellow Jackets. It's so good." And I watched it, and I was like, it's just fine." I mean, it's fine. Um, I think in season 2 in particular, was far more invested in the 1996 storyline. I said I was doing spoilers, but in case you forget, there is a 1996 storyline and there's a present day storyline. The present day storyline kind of sucked, I thought, for the most part. Had different characters and different storylines, and what's her name? The woman who also appeared in The Last of Us. I'm forgetting the character's name. I should have looked that up before I did this video, but I didn't. Um, the whole thing with the cop, that was so contrived, and I really did not care about, um, "Oh, this character is gonna be wanted for murder, or she's gonna be accused of murder," and it ended up not mattering at the end of the season, and I really didn't care, and the whole thing was contrived, and that cop, um, made huge leaps in logic, like when he decided that, oh, she was going to this hotel, to, meet with her lover, but then he figured out that, that was all a ruse. The way that he figured it out was huge leaps in logic that no way in hell should he even have made. He figured it out because the plot demanded it. It was really annoying. Also, this cop like broke 500 different laws. If they just hire a halfway decent lawyer, this thing will be thrown out of court in a second because this guy didn't do anything on the up and up. So there's no way any of that would stick. So it was all pointless. And then the one again, I should have looked up the characters' names again, but the woman who was the politician and who was having the sleepwalking things, I was more interested in that in the past. In the present day, it was just the thing about the dog was supposed to, I guess, freak us out or whatever. I just thought it was silly. So I don't know. I can't remember actually now if that was season one or season two. It all blends together, but that whole storyline was dumb. And Juliette Lewis, I am sorry to say, I don't really love her in this show. I mean, I know she's got this mystique about her. Oh, Juliette Lewis, she was in some of our favorite movies in the '90s. What was that one with Woody Harrelson? She was in. Oh, Juliette Lewis. Eh, he's okay, I guess. I don't know. So that storyline just kind of brought the show down for me. I did like the Lost in the Woods 1996 storyline better in season two. Season one, I was bugged by it because they had set it up about a show about cannibals, and it took them to the final episode to get to the cannibalism. Now they're kind of more into it. It's more interesting, and I like that they are leaving it ambiguous. Is this a fantasy show or is it not? Is there elements of mysticism and witchcraft, or is there not? I do like that. So I still landed on a 7 out of 10 for this show. But is it as good as my friends said it was? Is it as good as, there's probably other people out there too on the internet saying this is a great show. No. And again, I had to pick something because I do give these awards every year. So I felt like I need to pick something, but not anywhere near as overrated as Invincible, The Boys, or even as Andor. But it is what I came up with. So that is my pick. Yellow Jackets season 2 is my most overrated show of 2023. All right, moving on to my pick for the most underrated show of 2023, the one positive award in this video. To review, in 2021, my pick was the Netflix show Katla. And then last year it was The Time Traveler's Wife on what was then called HBO Max, now just Max. Um, the pick for 2023 will be the first one that was not canceled. It is still coming. They're going to actually do another season. Although to be fair, Katla may have been always meant to be a one season show. I don't recall, but the Traveler's Wife was canceled, and this year my pick is a little different than those two because in both of those cases I felt that nobody was watching them, first of all, and then the people who did watch them were only giving them mixed reviews and did not seem to like them as much as I did. so um, this one is a little different. I mean, I think it's coming back for a third season, and it's I think got a really strong following. But the reason why I decided to pick it as my underrated show is that I think it's underrated within its genre. My pick for the most underrated show of 2023 is The Wheel of Time, season 2. This has come up in a couple different videos. It was also a show I was really excited for. So that video that I did a couple weeks ago, it was in that. So here's my reasoning for picking The Wheel of Time. Within the fantasy genre, I just don't think it gets enough buzz. I don't think enough people are talking about it. I don't think it gets covered as much. I kind of base a lot of this off of the YouTube channels I watch. For example, Heavy Spoilers covers like everything, but they don't cover Wheel of Time. The only channels that I can find covering Wheel of Time are like Wheel of Time specific channels, like that they exist solely to cover the Wheel of Time, but it's not more broadly covered, and there's just not as much buzz. And here is where I bring up the other show I was considering for overrated show, and that is The Witcher, season 3. And I didn't pick it as my most overrated show because I was kind of looking through some of the reviews and looking at some of the IMDb reviews and Rotten Tomatoes. There was a lot of criticism for it, so it's hard to say it was overrated because there was a lot of people who seemed to not love it. However, I do think compared to the Wheel of Time season 2 was, in my opinion, leaps and bounds better than The Witcher season 3. And yet, The Witcher is covered on Heavy Spoilers. The Witcher gets more buzz. The Witcher is talked about more. Maybe it's the difference between Netflix and Amazon Prime, but I don't think so because Amazon Prime still had The Lord of the Rings. There's plenty of buzz around that because it has the name. And I don't know what it is. The Wheel of Time just doesn't have the same kind of franchise power that The Witcher does. I don't know. But I think it's a crime that The Witcher got more buzz around it and was covered on more channels and talked about more in the general discourse than Wheel of Time, which was vastly superior to it. Um, so, with The Wheel of Time, I don't necessarily have to get into a lot of spoilers, but I might get into mild spoilers. So if you haven't seen it, then maybe, and you're really, really sensitive to spoilers, then maybe you want to skip it. But I'm not going to get into too many um, plot details, maybe a little bit. So pick, you choose, you decide. So I thought it was a great adaptation, especially considering where they left off season 1, where they made some huge changes from the books, whereas Rand was pretending to be dead and telling all his friends or told Moraine to tell all his friends that he's dead. Moraine getting cut off from the One Power, both things that did not happen in the book. So it's like, how the hell are they going to get things back around to where the books are? And I think they do. I mean, they hit on the major beats. Obviously, if you've read the books, a lot of the details have vastly changed. There's a lot of you could pick out a lot of things like they had already changed like Matt going off and not going into the ways with them and doing his own thing. That was another thing, and him ending up captured by uh, Leanne Sedai. And the way that he met Min and Min was working, that his whole Min's storyline is totally different. Um, so a lot of the details are different. Um, a lot of things have changed, but they still hit on the major beats. And they hit most importantly on the things that I personally wanted to see from the books, and I wanted to see them done well, and they were done well. First of those things was Nynaeve entering into the arches. I loved that scene from the books, and I loved how the show did him. I think they did change it up a little bit, um, but it had that same kind of really powerful emotional feelings of what Nynaeve had to go through the arches. They did change it a little bit, but especially the thing about everyone thinking that she's lost in there forever, that was not in the book, as I recall. But it was equally as powerful. So that they nailed that. And then I wanted to, the show to recreate the really sick feeling. I mean, that's a weird thing to say, but really like sick feeling I experienced listening to the audiobook of book 2 recently when Egwene was captured by the Damani, and then the immense satisfaction you get when she gets out of it and kills her captor, though you also like feel a little sorrow for the character because she's lost a little bit of humanity in killing somebody. So there's that. That was how I felt from the books, and the show captured that beautifully. And then the finale. I don't know. People complain about the finale. I thought it was one of the best finales I've seen in a while. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I should watch it again, and maybe I'll hate it more. I don't know what all the complaints are about it. I thought it was great. I thought the ending was phenomenal. But I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But yeah, and then The Witcher. I mean, come on. I didn't name it as my overrated show, so I'm not going to go into any details on it because I didn't prepare any details for it. But it was like, who's going to watch it in season? Are they really going to do a season 4 without Henry Cavill? Are they really going to do that? Who's going to watch that? And like, it wasn't even that good in season 3. I mean, just let it die, honestly. And yeah, I mean, I know, of course, Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings are going to get more fanfare because they have bigger power, name recognition, and Game of Thrones is better. So well, until season 7 and 8, and House Dragon was better than Wheel of Time as well. But Lord of the Rings, we all know how that turned out. I mean, I understand why that would get more buzz because it's Lord of the Rings, but Wheel of Time, like a gazillion times better. Both seasons better than Lord of the Rings. So I should just get more general recognition by people besides just the hardcore fans, the fans of the show who are doing their own YouTube channels. Like, I wish it would get more general recognition within the genre because pretty strong show. So that was my pick for the most underrated show of 2023. That's The Wheel of Time. All right, and now we get the shameful award to the worst show that I watched in 2023. And much as was the case with my overrated show, the worst show is definitely not as bad as either of my picks for 2021 or 2022, which I'm grateful for. I'm glad that I didn't have to watch a show as bad as either of those two. So to review 2021, I picked The Nevers, which was a Joss Whedon brainchild, which ended up being a disaster. It was a mediocre show for the first few episodes, and then the finale was an absolute train wreck, and one of the worst finales I've ever seen in my entire life. Just very poorly written. I believe I ended up giving it a 2 out of 10 out of generosity because the first few episodes weren't that bad, but the finale was so bad. So I gave it a 2 out of 10. And then, of course, last year in 2022 was none other than Star Trek Picard season 2, which by my money was the worst show in the modern era, in the serialized show era. If you're talking about serialized shows that have, like 10 or so ish episodes, like a shorter amount of episodes, I think Picard is the absolute worst. Picard season 2 specifically was the absolute worst. And I gave that a 1 out of 10. So this year, I will go ahead and give my rating up front for the show that I'm about to tell you about. I gave it a 4 out of 10. I think it started as a 5, but as I thought of it more, I was like, probably a 4. But a 4 is still still a higher rating than my previous 2 years picks combined, because it was a 2 and a 1. And this was a 4, so it's higher than those two combined. So it is, the worst show of 2023, but it's not as bad as either of those two, thankfully for me. So my pick for the worst show of 2023 with that 4 out of 10 rating is Secret Invasion out of Marvel Studios over there on Disney Plus. Secret Invasion, mercifully the one and only season, I believe. So for a little while, I was, not as down on it as other people, because other people had these huge expectations, like, oh, Secret Invasion is going to be so good, and there's going to be all these amazing things that are going to happen. And I never thought that. Like, I never had high expectations for this show to begin with. So for a little while, it was like, it's meeting my expectations. But much with like my 2021 pick, The Nevers, the finale kind of really brought it down. Now, the finale is not as bad as The Nevers was, this absolute train wreck, but it definitely brought the show way down to a 4, I believe, and an easy pick for my worst show. I don't think I saw anything. I think the next, but I gotta look at my ratings that I gave everything again. I think the next one up is a 7. I might have given a 6 or 6.5 in there somewhere, but Secret Invasion, although not as bad as my last 2 years of picks, is way worse than anything else I watched in 2023, by my personal opinion. So that finale, they did the thing that Marvel always does, where two people fight against each other with the same powers. And the thing is, like, I don't give a fuck about either of these characters. Like, I just really don't. It also makes no sense. So now there's apparently a character running around out there with everybody's powers. Do you think that's going to play a big role in the MCU? No, I don't either. But there she is out there with everybody's powers running around. And there was a lot of joking about how in the Marvels, I think they brought it up in the pitch meeting too, how since she had Captain Marvel's powers, she technically should have been connected to the other 3 characters in the Marvels, how they were all tied together because of their powers. That she should have been in there too because she had Captain Marvel's powers, but nobody cares about her. So I guess I will start with a few positives. I think that there were a lot of great acting, Samuel L. Jackson, and the dude who plays Gravik. But it was weird seeing him in Barbie. Like, I watched Barbie like right after Secret Invasion, and I was like, Gravik is in this. So yeah, there were some great scenes, like that restaurant scene where there was like everybody was Gravik. That was cool. There was some really and some powerful scenes with Nick Fury and his wife, I guess. So there was some good stuff, a little bit of good stuff in there, to the point where I would not give it a 1 or 2 as I did the previous 2 years' worst picks. But God, that finale. God, that it just nonsensical. And I don't know. It was definitely weird, seeing, Nick Fury being all like disgruntled and dark and just bad space. And then it's really jarring seeing him in the Marvels just being all jovial and laughing. I'm like, how do these two even connect at all? Um, which, by the way, um, a lot of people were, you know, they like to talk about the low box office numbers for the Marvels and use that as evidence that MCU is dead, and they come up with all these different reasons. Well, oh, it's because there's women in it, or all these other crazy reasons that have to do with the film specifically. Oh, because they did this thing, that's why it got low box office numbers, or blah blah blah. No, it got low box office numbers is because of franchise fatigue, plain and simple. And Secret Invasion, I think, really contributed to that franchise fatigue by sucking, like being, um, I would say, the worst project that Marvel has done since Phase One or Two, and easily the worst Disney Plus show. And I really did not like the Falcon and the Winter Soldier either, but I still think I gave that a 5 or a 6. So this is even worse than that. Um, so just by being so bad, I think people really, and then the Ant-Man and Wasp: Quantumania also was not very good. So I think that is what's causing people to have franchise fatigue. I still don't buy into the MCU is dead thing. Um, Although, now that we got the news that Jonathan Majors is out as Kang, we'll have to see how they handle that. Because I think if they don't handle that correctly, that the MCU could actually die. But aside from that, I don't think just because the Marvels had low box office numbers, or because Secret Invasion and Ant-Man and Wasp: Quantumania sucked, that um, the MCU is dead just on those things. I think the MCU can bounce back, especially if they handle the Kang thing correctly. Um, but there's no denying that Secret Invasion sucked. Like it had a lot of potential. Also, it was playing off this whole like, ooh, anybody could be a scroll thing, which I think is, you know part of the appeal of the comics, which I never really read. But I know, just from other things like that, like BSG, and other things that I've watched that have that element to it, like, oh, anybody could be the enemy. And it was just Rhodey, and it was like so obvious from the beginning that Rhodey was a scroll. So, and then nobody else of any consequence was secretly a scroll, and it was like, like it was just overall very poorly structured, very poorly written show. It had some highlights, but just overall, it just was not done very well. Yeah, but thankfully for me, I never was high on the concept in the first place, like other people were. But uh, so I wasn't as disappointed, I guess. But yeah, it sucked. Sacked. That leaves Secret Invasion, Marvel's Secret Invasion, as my pick for the worst show of 2023. Even if it's not as bad as Picard or The Nevers, it's still, for 2023, easily the worst show that I watched. All right, thank you for joining me for my awards of 2023, for my most overrated, underrated, and worst show of 2023. Please join me next week for my top 10 best shows of 2023. I will also review, um, very quickly, all of the shows that I watched in 2023 ranked, but I will only get into the nitty gritty with my top 10. I'll just like throw a little list up on the screen that you can look at, but I'm not really going to get into any of them, except for the top 10 and maybe a couple honorable mentions as well. So stay tuned for that next week here on Alyssa Jean's Reviews. Happy Christmas, happy holidays. I'll say Happy New Year, but I'll get a chance to say that to you again next week. So see you all really soon. Goodbye.